Welcome to the FedLife podcast with Dan Sipe from Serving Those Who Serve. In this podcast, Dan draws from years of financial experience to help federal employees overcome challenges that every Fed can relate to. Join us for this journey as we reach, teach, and serve to help you make the right financial decisions. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the FedLife podcast. I know I'm not supposed to break the walls of time and space, but it's a new year and I am pumped to be here. So in case you hadn't guessed, I'm your host, Dan Sipe. Additionally, I'm the branch manager here at Serving Those Who Serve and Lee Sipe and Associates. I will begin, as I have these many years, by saying thank you. Thank you for taking time to listen, and thank you for your service to the country, to the federal government, to all of us. You don't hear that enough. You will always hear it here. Once again, I'm happy to say my buddy Ed Zurndorfer is back with us as part of that ongoing mission. Say it with me, folks: to reach, teach, and serve you. And you're used to this by now. At the outset, I need to say the opinions of our guest Ed Zurndorfer, not the opinions of Raymond James of Serving Those Who Serve. This podcast is presented for information only and is not intended to be taken as advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. If you do not have a personal advisor, hit us up at stwserve.com. We will help you any way we can. Once again, as we always do, we will follow Ed's FedZone articles, giving us one more way to reach and teach. And another friendly reminder, you can also make sure that you have the best of Ed and the best of Serving Those Who Serve delivered right to your inbox by signing up for the weekly serving. So hit that subscription information on our YouTube channel to be able to get set up. Well, Ed, we dive into a new year, and it's jumping in with your article, 10 moves Feds should consider for putting their finances in order. So I'm excited about this.
I am too, Dan. It's the start of a new year, and it's time for everyone to get their finances in order. And it was a tough year during 2022, so let's now start off and improve whatever we can improve as soon as possible during this new year.
Okay, Ed, so let's move forward with your first tip, which I love because we haven't been able to talk about this for like 20 years. Switch to a higher yield savings account. So talk us through that.
Yes, Stan, this is we're living in a different time now compared to past years, probably the past 5 to 10 years, in which we've been really the good news is that interest rates have been lower, mortgage rates have decreased, car loan rates have decreased, etc. But we paid the price in terms of going to the bank. If we're opening up savings accounts or CDs, the rates have been very, very low, to say the least. We're talking about short-term interest rates. As we know, over the past year or so, the Federal Reserve has raised short-term interest rates to the point that they're the highest now in almost 10 years. Many people don't notice that because when they go to the bank, they don't see any, and the banks have not really raised their rates accordingly. Of course, they're charging more in terms of loans, but when it comes to giving out higher rates in forms of savings accounts and CDs, that has not really occurred. I was looking at the website bankrate.com. The national average yield on savings accounts is 0.2%. That was as of December 28, 2022. 0.2% annual percentage yield. Think about this, Dan. What is 0.2% going to give you? That means that if you had $1,000 in a savings account, over a year, you'll get $2 in interest.
Yep.
That won't even buy you a slice of pizza.
Very true.
So what I'm encouraging employees and retirees to do is to go around and search around. There are places where you can get higher yields on your savings accounts.
Sure.
Let me give you some examples. Probably one of the most popular ones are U.S. I savings bonds. These are
Mm-hmm.
offered by the U.S. Treasury.
Mm-hmm.
They currently have current rates a 6.89% yield. Wow,
Yep.
6.89% yield. That's over 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After an I bond, one should look at the U.S. Treasury,
Sure.
which we're talking about Treasury securities,
Mm-hmm.
Treasury bills, even Treasury notes, maybe 3, 4, 5 year Treasury notes. Um, they will definitely offer higher yields than what you're going to get in the bank or in a credit union. I have
Sure.
to tell you, I've always loved U.S. Treasuries. One of the reasons I like them is, number one, they're safe. We're talking about a
Mm-hmm.
AAA rating. And number two is that, yeah, you have to pay tax on the interest that you're getting, but you only have to pay federal tax, no
Gotcha.
state tax. I mean, if you live in a state that has no state income tax, I realize that's no big deal. But if you live in a state that has a high income tax rate, like California or New York, and there are other in New Jersey, the states, you'll really appreciate not having to pay any state income tax on the interest that you're getting from the treasuries and from the U.S. treasuries.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Those are great thoughts. Your second tip, a lot of folks might not think about this, but you advise to check the safety on where you're keeping your money, whether it's a bank or brokerage or credit union or retirement accounts. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we all know about what happened to the crypto exchange FTX.
Oh yeah.
Went down, and there a lot of people lost a lot of money, and it shut down. And it sort of was a reminder, a wake up call that when we invest our money, whether it's in savings and into just regular savings accounts or brokerage accounts, we have to ask ourselves the question: is our money really safe? Actually, this question came about, I remember about 30 years ago. I don't know if you remember, Dan. We had a savings and loan crisis in this
Oh, I
country,
remember. Yep.
and people lost a lot of money because the savings and loans they put their money into were not insured. Well, the law
Gotcha.
changed, Congress changed the laws. So what I'm recommending is that everyone check the safety of their investment accounts, their savings accounts, and
Hmm.
just as a review here, when we put our money into banks, we have protection through the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC. The
Hmm.
FDIC provides $250,000 of protection per single owned accounts. And if
Hmm.
you have a jointly owned account, let's say with a spouse, you get $500,000 of protection. That's per
Awesome.
bank. Many federal employees have money in their credit unions. The credit unions have the equivalent amount of protection, but it's provided through what's called the National Credit, the NCUA, the National Credit
Hmm.
Union Administration, NCUA, that provides protection, the equivalent protection that FDIC has.
Yep.
If um, individuals have money in brokerage accounts like
Hmm.
Merrill Lynch, I'm just giving some examples here, or Vanguard, or Raymond James. I'm just throwing out some examples here. They have brokerage
Sure.
accounts. The brokerage accounts have what's called SIPC protection. That stands for the Securities Insurance Protection Corporation, which provides $500,000 of protection for brokerage accounts held by individuals in member SIPC brokerage firms. And Dan, I got to tell you, I don't know of any brokerage that is not a member of the SIPC. Okay. Um,
Absolutely.
and finally, here's a very interesting thing. Many people may not think about this. Let's say someone has a qualified retirement plan, a 401k plan, um, a 403b plan. Is that plan protected? Yes, it's protected through through the Federal Employee Retirement Income Security Act. That law was ERISA. That was passed back in 1974. You have protection for those accounts too. And people ask, does that include IRAs? No, IRAs are not included in there. IRAs, if you have an IRA invested in a brokerage firm, that $500,000 of SIPC is protecting your IRA.
Gotcha. Okay. And wow, I love your number 3 too, which is if your bank starts jacking your rates up, hit the road and leave them, right?
Don't complain, do something. That's what
There
I
you
always
go.
say. Banks are out to make money, obviously.
Mhm.
And they sort of sort of have some nitpicking fees, which I really don't think are necessary. Let me give you one example. Many people go to an ATM, take out cash. They're going to be charged. They're going to be charged to go to the ATM. Maybe not theirs, but if you go to an outside ATM, you're not. Your bank is the ABC Bank, and out of convenience, you go to the DEF Bank, and you use the DEF Bank ATM. Your bank's going to charge you for using that ATM. Also, some of these banks charge some god awful monthly maintenance fee. You have to keep, for example, a $1,000 balance in your checking account, or they're going to charge you $25 a monthly maintenance fee. This is eating away at your savings. Okay.
Sure.
Once again, I like to use this website, bankrate.com, because on that website, among other things, they make a list of banks that offer the services that I just mentioned, free access to the ATMs, no monthly maintenance fees, and they give a list of the banks. For some people, they'll say, well, is it really worth switching from one bank to another? In my opinion, yes. When you get those services for free, the benefits of having free and no bank fees, it really outweighs the inconvenience of switching institutions. It's no fun to switch banking institutions. I realize that, but think about it over the long run, how much money you're going to save.
Sure. No, that makes all the sense in the world. And your next one, I got to tell you, hit me where I live. And that's cancel subscriptions not used or not necessary. Because every cute kid that comes to my door raising money for a sports team or a scout troop or something like that with a magazine, and they're so cute with their little sales pitch and everything. I have no sales resistance on that. So I sat down and started looking at magazine subscriptions, for example, that I have that go straight in the recycling bin. And you also raise a good point that so much of our economy is switching over to subscription model now. So we've got apps, memberships, you name it, streaming services. So great idea. What else should we be looking for there?
Just want to mention that according to a study by C&R Research, the average American spends more than $200 a month on subscription fees and underestimates the cost by approximately $130.
Wow. Wow.
3/4 of consumers say it's easy to forget about those recurring monthly charges.
Wow.
42% of individuals surveyed admitted that they were still paying a subscription that they had completely forgotten about.
Oof.
These monthly costs associated with streaming services, gym memberships, and mobile apps have all increased over the past year. Remember, we've had a lot of inflation. Inflation was like about over 8% during 2022, and everything associated with the things I mentioned, streaming services, gym memberships, and mobile apps, have increased.
Gotcha.
Also, very important point, that once an individual authorizes a company to take recurring payments from an individual's checking or savings account, the company can change the price what they're charging without asking permission.
Ooh.
This makes it easy to lose track of exactly how much an individual is actually spending.
Sure. Nope, that's a great tip.
Here's a New Year's resolution for everyone. We're at the beginning of 2023. First resolution, take stock of their finances, everything that's coming in and going out, but make an effort to cut unneeded expenses and prepare what I consider again to be a very challenging 2023. And when I say unneeded expenses, do you really need all those subscriptions?
Sure.
Are you utilizing the gym on a regular basis to the point that you really need it?
Gotcha.
Look, take a full assessment here of what you have and what you really need.
No, that's a great tip. Next one, I think will be a surprise to some people, which is renegotiate some recurring bills, especially wireless phone and cable bills. So tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. Another study made, I love bankrate.com, Dan.
I can see that, Ed.
Cable companies and wireless providers may be willing, listen to this, to lower an existing customer's bill if they're contacted by the customer to lower the bill, and they're very anxious to do that. And the reason why, Dan, because those cable companies and wireless providers want to retain you as a customer. It's a lot cheaper for them to cut the cost what they're charging you compared to going out and getting a new customer.
Sure.
Bottom line is, take it upon yourself to renegotiate your phone bill, your internet bill, your cable bill, and the first step is look at your bills, and
Gotcha.
particularly look at the stuff that says other fees. What is that all about? Other fees, and talk to your company or companies.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Number 6, again, I'm kind of fangirling on all of these, but love this one too. Pay down credit card debt and improve FICO scores. You know me, Ed. I hate debt. Pay it all off. But yeah, go ahead and walk us through why getting that FICO score up is important.
Yeah, Dan. I always say there's good debt and there's bad debt. What's an example of good debt? Take a mortgage.
Sure.
Okay. No one has the cash to buy a house now in this day and age. So you have to take out a debt, and you see the benefit of owning a house, paying your mortgage down. Eventually, you'll hopefully own your house outright. So that's good debt. What's an example of bad debt? Credit card debt. Okay. I always say that when people ask me, how do I control my credit card debt? I always say, before you buy something, you want to go out and shop and you're about to buy something, you ask yourself the question, now, if I'm going to use my credit card to buy this particular item, by the time the bill rolls around next month, will I be able to afford to pay the bill in full? Be honest with yourself, because if the answer is no, do not use that credit card. A credit card should be used purely out of convenience, with the idea that you're going to pay it in full when it's due.
Sure.
Unfortunately, many individuals have not taken that advice. They use their credit cards indiscriminately. They buy what they want, not in some cases, not what they need. And it goes on and on. And we talked about the increase in interest rates. Credit card rates have skyrocketed.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, Dan, as an accountant, I'm sure you're aware of this, that interest that you're paying, that god-awful amount of interest that you're paying on that credit card is not deductible.
Oh, yeah, I know that. Absolutely. So that's a huge tip right there. Now I know a lot of these have seemed to be pretty general, not specific to feds, but this next one really is. And it's review one's TSP, because you mentioned that we're not supposed to monkey with the TSP. We're not supposed to day trade it or something like that, but we're also not supposed to ignore it. So take us through what you mean there.
I always believe when it comes to the TSP that with federal employees, when they contribute to the TSP, that just by putting it, what I call running it on autopilot, putting the money in every 2 weeks on a regular basis, dollar cost averaging is the best way to save for the future. But we have to keep in mind that the TSP is a long-term savings account. It's for retirement. And we have to, when we're contributing to TSP, think about what the goal is here. The goal here is to fund your TSP year in and year out to the maximum possible, and to make sure that how we have chosen to invest in the TSP will meet our goals for retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that we're saving enough and we're investing the right way. Now, in terms of saving enough, around every November, the TSP announces what the contribution limits will be for the following year. For 2023, they've gone up. The highest dollar increases, the highest dollar increase, I believe, in the history of the TSP.
Oh, yeah.
So every federal employee, permanent employee, whether you're part-time or full-time, can contribute during the TSP during the year 2023, a total of $22,500. That's an increase of $2,000 from $2022. And I recommend that employee should, if they're going to contribute the maximum every year, they should try to do that, do as much as they can, but they should make the decision to increase their contributions to the TSP at the earliest possible moment, which would be in mid to late December. So it takes effect in January. And if they did not do that, they had not made that increase request in late December. Now's the time to do it. So they start putting as much money into the TSP right now for the rest of the year. Now, the 22,500 is for individuals, no matter what their age. If someone will be over age 49 during 2023, they can put an extra $1,000. I'm sorry, an extra $7,500, which is an increase of $1,000 from what it was in 2000. These are called catch-up contribution of what it was in 2022. But the TSP will not do that unless the employee goes to their MyPay or Employee Express and increases the dollar amount that they're putting in every pay date. You got to do that. So that is very important, year in and year out, that employees do that. And as far as their investment, their fund, how they're allocating their contributions into the TSP, they should stick to their long-term plan, which is for retirement, to maximize your TSP for retirement. Yes, the TSP had a bad year during 2022. We know that. The market had the stock market, the bond market had a bad year. And when I hear from employees, well, I better get into the safe fund, the so-called G fund from now on, because it doesn't look like the market's going to do that well in 2023. That is not the right approach. I encourage employees to please talk to their financial advisors to talk about the idea of what a retirement plan is all about, investing in a retirement plan, to set their goals, and any type of short-term deviations from their in terms of returns, things like that, like we had in 2022, should not change their long-term outlook.
No, couldn't agree with you more. And I'm also going to take a step here. So I'm going to ask, and I see the numbers. I know that there's a core review that pretty much listen to everything we put out. So I call you my FedLifers. So I'm going to ask you FedLifers to raise your right hand, and I'm going to ask you to make me a promise. I want you to take a look at your left hand. You can see 5 fingers there. I want you to remind 5 people that they can bump up their TSP. Okay, so when you're talking around the office, when you're talking on Zooms, whatever, let 5 people know about that. because this is a big deal and we got to help each other out here. So that's an important point that Ed brought up, and we want to make the most of that. All right, so next one is kind of a veer that a lot of people wouldn't think about. And Ed, so you say get or update your estate plan. What are we talking about here?
Whether a federal employee or retiree's total economic wealth is not is small, medium, or large, an employee and retiree needs to plan for the future. It's called having an estate plan. Okay. Many people take the attitude, well, I don't have much of an estate. I really don't need an estate plan. Well,
Gotcha.
I mentioned that there's more to an estate plan than wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Part of your estate plan, Dan, is what I call planning for incapacity.
Gotcha.
If I can say this, we have as part of Serving Those Who Serve, we do webinars, and one of our webinars is called estate planning.
Yep, we do.
And the first thing I mention is that when I present that webinar is that estate planning is not just for Warren Buffett.
Mm-hmm.
I use the example. If God forbid someone is on life support and a decision has to be made whether to keep that person on life support or not, the hospital, the doctor is not going to ask the question, well, what is this person's net worth? Before we make a decision, should we just look at their net worth to see if it's necessary? Of course, that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
The person who's on, God forbid, life support should have put down as part of his or her estate plan what type of measures he or she wants the medical community to keep him alive, and how far.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of an estate plan. And of course, part of your estate plan is to ask the question, when I pass away, how will my wealth, whatever I have, be distributed to loved ones?
Sure.
What type of funeral do I want? Do I want to have any type of organ donation? These are questions that have to be answered, have to be addressed in one's estate plan. Many times I hear this from younger employees. Well, I have time to come up with an estate plan. I don't have to worry about it. When I get to my 40s and 50s, then I'll start worrying on estate plan. And my response is, do you have any children? Oh yes, I have 3 children, and they're so cute. And I said, I'm sure they are. And I asked the question, suppose you, and if you're married, your spouse are not around, die in an accident, God forbid, who's going to take care of those young children? The person says, Dan, and Ed, I really never thought about that. I'm glad you brought that up. I better do something. I said, if you don't, who's going to decide who's going to take care of your children? The state. You may not like that. Okay? You don't want
Gotcha.
that. So there's so many aspects to estate planning that need to be addressed as soon as possible. Whether, having a will, a living will, having a financial power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, all the things we talk about. I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you any legal advice, but I will tell you that having an up-to-date estate plan is very, very important.
No, makes sense to me, Ed. Your next one is another one that might not be on a lot of people's radar, which is consolidate retirement accounts, especially if you're close to full retirement or getting close. So what are we looking for there?
Well, we're talking about here, Dan, if someone has has benefited by saving all these years in retirement, they've contributed to, let's say, if they're a federal employee, they're going to be getting a CSRS or FERS annuity, they're going to be getting Social Security. They've contributed to the TSP. They have traditional IRAs. They might have Roth IRAs. They may have worked for a private company in the past, and they have left over a 401k plan or a 403b retirement plan that they used to participate in, but the money is there. I got to tell you, Dan, when you get close to what's called your required beginning date, like I am,
Yep.
I have a TSP account, I have IRAs, I got a SEP IRA. I'm thinking about this.
Sure.
This is getting complicated.
Mm-hmm.
This is getting complicated. And I recommend that if individuals have access to multiple retirement accounts, like qualified retirement plans, such as 401k, 403b plans, 457 plans, they may have TSP, they have IRAs, to think about consolidating, because once you reach your required beginning date, which right now, for people born before January 1st, 1951, is age 72. It's going to go up. It's going to go up it has gone up as a result of the recent passage of the Secure Act. We'll be talking about that to age 73. But the fact of the matter is, it gets to be very complicated in terms of taking money out of all these plans. You reach a point where you have to take out what's called required minimum distribution from each of these plans, and that gets to be a real challenge. In fact, let me go through some of the reasons I'm talking about consolidating, why I'm recommending consolidating. It's easier to manage.
Mm-hmm.
Think about when you reach your 70th birthday, Dan. Life gets to be so complicated. You got all these decisions to make, including managing your investments. Having everything under one roof, one retirement plan, make things a little bit easier. Also, when it comes to IRAs, if you have multiple IRAs, realize you are paying a custodial fee for those IRAs. The more IRAs you have, the larger is going to be your custodial fees. You want to reduce the amount of IRAs, consolidate your IRAs, or roll your IRA. If you're a federal employee, you have a traditional IRA, roll your traditional IRA into your TSP. That's an advantage for two reasons. One, you won't have to pay any custodial fee for the IRA anymore, because it's inside the TSP. There are no custodial fees with a TSP. And you only have to take one RMD from the TSP. If you have that traditional IRA, and you've passed your required beginning date, you got to take a separate RMD from the IRA and a separate RMD from the TSP.
Sure.
So that's that. So you can reduce those fees. And talking about RMDs, like I mentioned a moment ago, there is a separate RMD for each of the retirement accounts that you own. If you have a 401k plan, you got to take an RMD from that 401k plan once you reach your required beginning date. If you have a traditional IRA, that's a separate RMD. If you have the TSP, separate RMD. Each one has its own RMD, and it's complicated. And lest we forget, Dan, there's a penalty if you don't take that.
Yes, there is.
It's currently 50%, but it's going to drop. We're going to be talking about that. The what's called the excess accumulation IRS penalty for not taking your RMD will be reduced from 50% down to 20% as a result of the passage of the Secure 2.0 Act. We're going to be talking about that later.
Yep.
And finally, it's easier for beneficiaries. Think about if you've named beneficiaries for all these retirement plans, okay, and they got to go through all this paperwork for each of these plans to find out what you owned, who's entitled to what, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a recommendation. Some people can manage these multiple retirement plans.
Sure.
I frankly cannot. In fact, I did that. I consolidated I rolled over my TSP to my IRA for a couple reasons, but the main reason is to make life easier for my family.
Sure. No, good plan. And your last one, wow, this is a big issue. Plan to self-insure for future long-term care expenses.
Yeah, Dan, I hate to say this, but I think that the long-term care insurance industry, long-term care insurance, is in crisis mode. What I'm talking about here is that individuals who have bought long-term care insurance have gotten the shock of their lives with the idea that their premiums have skyrocketed over the past few years. The federal long-term care insurance premiums have gone up over the years. And with the federal long-term care insurance, I don't know if people are aware of this, but they have shut down. You cannot apply for the federal long-term care insurance for the next 2 years.
Yep.
Anybody who has the federal long-term care insurance who got enrolled, as long as they keep paying the premiums, they are insured. But I'm a little bit worried that if the federal long-term care insurance is shutting down because they have to reassess what they're going to be charging in premiums, what's going to happen for those people who have the federal long-term care insurance, like myself and my wife, and if we have to go to a nursing home or assisted living, or you need long-term care at home, will John Hancock Life and Health Insurance Company that runs the federal long-term insurance, will they be able to pay? Are they going to have enough money to pay the benefits?
Sure.
It's a worry I have. So what I'm suggesting here is that, and if you go out and try to buy an individual long-term care insurance policy, there's only 5 companies that offer it, and they've jacked up their premium costs as well. So what I'm suggesting for particularly those employees who are in mid-career, getting close to retirement, and even those federal employees who have retired, if they have not bought any long-term care insurance, need to what I call self-insure, setting aside something like a part of their TSP. I call it the TSP rainy day long-term care fund, that it'll be there in case they have to go to a nursing home. And for those employees who were thinking about long-term care insurance, I suggest that they self-insure. What I mean by self-insure is set aside some of their monthly income and invest in, for the long term. Speak with an advisor how
absolutely
can invest for the future to get to build up a nice amount of money that will be designated as their long-term care rainy day fund, so that they have to go to a nursing home or assisted living down the line, the money will be there. The advantage of that is, Dan, is one of the disadvantages I find with long-term care insurance is that if you pay all those premiums and you never go to a nursing home,
sure,
all those or you never have to use the benefits because you pass away, all those premiums you paid are gone.
Very true.
Whereas when you self-insure, if you set aside that money and it goes into that amount, that investment, building up that investment over time, and you pass away, where's all that money go? To your designated beneficiaries. You haven't lost anything.
No, that's a good tip. Well, Ed, this is a heck of a list, and I know it's going to help our feds focus, for the coming year. Yeah, as I said, brother, I don't know how you do it, but I'm glad you do it with us. It's a huge help to the federal community, and I'm very grateful for that. And folks, that is a wrap. We are serving those who serve. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on our YouTube channel and Spotify. Please remember to share it with your friends and strangers. Check us out on Twitter and LinkedIn. And don't forget those live webinars every week. Head over to scwserve.com. You're going to see the blue webinar button. You touch it, it turns red. Click it. That's going to take you to the whole menu. The guru will come to you, reach you where you are, teach you where you are, serve you where you are. And be sure to read Ed every week in the Fed Zone. That's fed-zone.com. And be sure to sign up for that weekly serving. Ed and all our other Fed stars delivered straight to you. So heading out for Ed, the crew at Serving the Serve, and me, Dan Sipe, good luck, Godspeed, and above all, it's your Fed life. Make it a great one because you deserve it. Stay well, everybody. We are out.
Thank you for listening to the FedLife podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Serving Those Who Serve or Raymond James. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors Incorporated. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services.
Raymond James is not affiliated and does not endorse the opinions or services of any of the quoted professionals or their respective firms. Any opinions are those of Dan Sipe and not necessarily those of RJFS or Raymond James. This case study is for illustrative purposes only. Individual cases will vary. Raymond James is not affiliated with and does not endorse the opinions or services of the quoted professionals or their respective organizations.
Neither Raymond James Financial Services nor any Raymond James financial advisor renders advice on tax issues. These matters should be discussed with the appropriate professional. Investing involves risk, and you may incur a profit or loss regardless of strategy selected, including diversification and asset allocation.